Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our dear sister. Strange things indeed they do happen in this world. So this is the translation of that message that she sent to me. The translation reads like this. Hello, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? So I came here to South Africa like a very long time ago. And when I came here, that was when I got married to my South African husband. But there are things about me that my husband does not even know. Things about me that I do not want him to know. I would rather die. I would rather kill than for him to know that this is who I am right now. So I always thought that the church was a safe place. Remember, when I came here, I did not have like any papers at all. I then started staying at this other church, which was still a very small church in that community where I was staying. Since I did not have a place to stay, I was staying there as well as working at that church. I thought that it was a place where God's light would shine the brightest. I never imagined that I would find myself caught in something so dark, something that would shake my faith and my life to its very core. So that was when I was told by one of the women, after she had heard me singing, that I should consider coming and joining the praise worship. I even told her that when I was still back home in Zim, I used to be in the praise worship team. I loved being in the praise worship team. It felt like my way of giving birth, of serving God with everything that I had. Every Sunday, I would stand at the front singing with all of my heart, believing that this was where I was meant to be. But I never realized that behind the smiles and the prayers, there was something that was much more sinister, which was waiting for me. So I kept on giving my life to Christ and dedicated myself to the church, since the church was the one that was now taking care of me, and that is where I met my husband. At that time, we were not yet married. It started with the pastor's wife. She was always so friendly, so welcoming, and she took a special interest in me. I admired her. I don't want to lie. She was respected in the church, always leading the women's ministry, and she had this way of making you feel like you were very important. She started inviting me over to her house for Bible studies, as well as helping her whenever her maid was not around. So things quickly turned out to be great for me, because at that time, my husband-to-be, he was just dragging his feet. He did not want to commit. But through the pastor's wife, then he ended up proposing to me, and we got married. At first, when I was being friends with the pastor's wife, I really felt like this was a blessing, because there were people that had money, even though they had their small church in the community, but they were staying in the most expensive suburbs. So it felt like a blessing. I felt like I was honored that someone like him would want to spend time with me, to mentor me. She told me how much potential she saw in me, how God had big plans for my life. But over time, the conversation started to change. She started talking about power, about the spiritual realm, how it was much more complex than what we were taught in church. She said that there were forces that we needed to understand, and if we wanted to truly serve God, I didn't think much of it at first. I thought that she was just talking about spiritual warfare, about prayer and fasting. But then things started to get strange. She began to ask me to come to her house on certain nights. She said that it was for special prayers, that we needed to unlock new spiritual dimensions if we wanted to see the power of God in the church. I trusted her. She was the pastor's wife after all. Who was I to question her? Besides, she was wealthy. The first time I went, it felt off. The house was like dark, and as if there was some spiritual entity that was hovering above that house. And when I walked in, she was already waiting for me with 2 other women. They were all from the church, all involved in the ministry. They smiled at me, but it was not the same kind of smile that I was used to seeing. It felt really, really wrong. When I looked at one of the women, she was smiling at me, but she then stopped smiling when I looked at her and she looked to the side. And then the pastor said we were going to pray, but it was not the kind of prayer that I was used to. They didn't even open the Bible. They didn't even sing hymns. Instead, they started chanting words that I did not recognize. At first, I thought it was a different type of a prayer, something deeper that I just did not understand. But as they were chanting, I felt that there was something that entered into the room, something dark, a demon that was moving around us. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run out of that room, but something kept me there. It was like my feet were stuck to the floor. The pastor's wife looked at me, and with that same strange smile, she handed me something, a small object wrapped in cloth. She said that I needed to hold on to it if I wanted to see a breakthrough in my life. And I did not understand. I did not know what it was exactly, but I took it. When you are surrounded by wealthy people, they can end up making you to do things that you do not even want to. So I took it because I did not want to offend the pastor, to make her feel bad, as well as her rich friends, because I also wanted them to involve me in their rich ladies club. I didn't want to seem ungrateful or unfaithful. She said that it was important, that I needed it, that God wanted me to have it. That night, I could not fall asleep. I kept thinking about what had happened, about the chanting, the candles, the strange things they were saying, and that object. I didn't know what it was, but something inside of me felt wrong, like I had opened a door that I was not supposed to. The next Sunday, I went to church like usual. I stood in front of the congregation, singing and praising, but I could not focus. I kept on thinking about that night, about what we had done. I tried to shake it off, but the feeling would not leave. I knew something was wrong, but I could not put my finger on it. It was not until later, until I started seeing things, strange things, shadows moving where they were not supposed to. Sometimes I would even hear whispers whenever I was alone. I felt like I was losing my mind, like something was following me, watching me. That was when I knew, that was when I realized that I was not just involved in prayer. It was something else, something demonic about what this pastor's wife was doing to me. Sometimes those that are closest to you, they can even carry the darkest secrets. And what we do normally is that when we hear that someone that is rich wants to be friends with us, like we just let our guard down. That is what I did with the pastor's wife. I just said, this woman, she is going to assist me. I was happy that I was being this close to the pastor, because I thought that maybe the glory that was inside of her, that glory was going to come into my life as well. Then there were things that I started to notice in my life. Whenever I'll be at church, like there was this other Sunday, it was hard to focus on that Sunday. My voice, my passion, it was not there. I felt disconnected from everything. All that I could think about was what had happened at the pastor's house the night before. The candles, the chanting, the strange object she gave me, I knew that something was wrong, but I was too afraid to admit it. So I tried to sing like I always did, to lead the congregation, but inside I felt like there was something that was missing. The Holy Spirit was no longer there with me. The pastor's wife smiled at me from the front row, like she knew something that I did not know. And that smile, that smile, sent chills down my spine. I could not stop thinking about it. That night when I got home, I wanted to pray, to ask God for clarity. But every time that I would try, the words would not come out. My mind was too clouded, too heavy with fear. I felt like I was trapped in some kind of an invisible net, and no matter how hard I tried, I still could not break free. I kept looking at that small object on my nightstand, the one that she gave me. I wanted to throw it away, but something told me not to. It was like I was under some kind of spell that I could not even let go of. Then, when it all started, the nightmares every night, the same dream, I was back in the pastor's house, but this time the candles burned brighter and the chanting was louder, almost deafening. I would see shadows that would be moving around me, and in the middle of it all was the pastor's wife, watching me with the same cold, knowing I know eyes. I would wake up in the middle of the night, always drenched in sweat, my heart always racing, but it did not stop when I would wake up. I would feel like the same demonic possession, as if there was a demon that would be following me throughout the day. I would hear whispers, faint but constant, like someone was talking just behind me. And the shadows, I started seeing shadows where they were not supposed to be. Brother Nashi, that was what I was going through at that time. At first, I thought that I was losing my mind, but the more that it happened, the more I realized this was something spiritual, something dark. I tried to talk to the pastor's wife about it. I think she would help me understand, but when I brought it up, she just smiled and said, "This is part of the process. You are being tested." I did not know what she meant, but I chose to trust her. I trusted her since she was the pastor's wife after all. She said that I needed to keep the object, that it was important for my spiritual growth, but deep down, I knew that something was not right at all. The next time when I went to her house, it was even worse. Like you could tell that there was something that was wrong. They were burning the candles, chanting as always, but the demonic presence that I felt on that day, it was just too much. There was a weight that I felt as if it was being pressed down on me. I did not want to be there, but at the same time, because I wanted the pastor's husband to I wanted the pastor's wife's husband to connect my husband to some business opportunities. I could not leave. It was like something was holding me in place. I remember looking at the other women, the ones who were always there with us. They didn't seem afraid. In fact, they looked calm, like they had been doing this for years. I started to wonder if they knew something that I did not, if they were part of something that I was not ready for. That night, when I drove back home, I was not even able to breathe properly, like I was asthmatic. I knew I needed to get out, but I didn't know how. I was afraid of what would happen if I would left, afraid of what the pastor's wife might do to me. But most of all, I was afraid of what I had already become part of. I knew that it was wrong. I knew I had to get rid of that object. But every time that I would try, I would feel so sick, like something was stopping me. I did not know what it was, but it was powerful. That was when I realized that this was not just about prayers. This was not about God at all. It was something dark, something evil. That is how I became a witch. Even right to this day, I am still a witch that leads people into prayer, in praise and worship. I feel so bad about what I am doing. Worst of all, I feel so bad about the way that sometimes I use charms on my own husband, yet he's just an innocent man who does not know anything. I did not think that it could get this worse, but I was wrong. So wrong. That night when the pastor's wife called me and told me to meet her at 2 a.m., even my husband complained because I received a phone call somewhere around 12 a.m., then at 1 a.m. Then my husband complained and she was like, "It is late." And he was noticing that there was something that was going on between me and the pastor's wife because I was always at her place. The reason as to why I ended up giving him some love potion, it was because of the pastor's wife. She was the one who said that he had to be given Korobela, otherwise he was going to talk and just say things that he was not supposed to say. I then found out that even the pastor's wife, gave her husband a love potion. I knew that I was not supposed to go. After I received the phone call I then fell fast asleep. That was when I had a soft knock, like she was tapping on the window. And then I woke up. But what surprised me is that when I had this, I woke up, but I was in my dream and I could not stop myself. She called me. She said, "Come outside." And Brother Nashi, I just went outside. I did not use the door. I just went through the window and I found myself outside and I could not stop myself. It was like I was under some kind of a spell, completely controlled, and I had no idea what was waiting for me when she said, "Let us go." So we arrived at her house just before 2 a.m. and everything felt different. It was dark and it felt like the Spirit of the Lord, if there was any that was still in her home, had left on that night. There was no warmth, no light. She led me outside past her garden, and then we started walking, and we walking in silence. When we were at her garden, that was when she gave me some charms that she wanted me to drink. And when I drank those charms, that was when I found out that there were some women that were also waiting for me and her. Then we started walking until we reached this other cemetery in town. But the way that we were walking, it's like we were really fast. I wanted to run and to turn back when I found out that we were at the graveyard, but I could not do that. I felt trapped and I was just frozen and I was trapped by fear. She told me to stand by this other grave, and I did. Then she whispered words with the other women, words that I could not even understand, and I felt as if there was an earthquake. The ground shifted, and when the ground shifted and I felt it as it was moving, I could feel something beneath me. She told me not to be afraid because this was part of the initiation. I did not even know what that meant, but I knew that this was not normal. This was not about God, and this was not prayer. In fact, this thing was happening in my dream, but it felt like it was real. That was when I saw a hyena. A hyena appeared out of nowhere. It came to me. Its eyes was glowing in the dark, and I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. The pastor's wife just stood there as if nothing was wrong. Then they started laughing when they saw that I was scared of the hyena. She looked at me as she was laughing and said, "Tonight you are going to ride with us. Tonight you are going to be one with us. Tonight we welcome you to this into the sisterhood." Then they started laughing, and it was this kind of a demonic laughter that I had never had before. I didn't understand what she meant, but soon I was going to understand. She told me to climb onto the back of the hyena, and then I saw other hyenas that appeared. Everyone had their own hyena, and she said that this was going to be my friend for life. I thought that I was dreaming, that this could not be real, but it was real. I climbed onto the back of that hyena, shaking, terrified, and then we started moving fast. The wind rushed past me as we rode through the night, heading towards the village. I could not even believe what was happening. This was not natural at all. This was not right. When we arrived into that village, they took me to a house. It was one of the village homes, but everything was really dark inside. I knew what we were there for. The pastor's wife was calm, almost like this was routine for her. She told me that this was what they did. They move in the night to bewitch people, to take their destinies, to feed them human meat, to control them. I could not believe it, and I did not want to believe it. That night, that was when I knew that I had crossed a line that I could never come back from. The pastor's wife gave me a snake. She said that it was a gift at Okoloshi to protect me and to help me control those around me. I did not want it, but I could not say no, because now I felt that I had been possessed by the devil completely, because there are levels of demonic possession. It was too late. I had already become part of their sisterhood. Something evil. That snake, it is not just a normal snake, it is also a spirit, and I knew that this snake, it is from the devil, but I accepted this gift knowing that it will help me to control other people and to bewitch other people. I started using Korobela, a love potion, on my husband, as I had been told by the pastor's wife, since he was now complaining a lot because I was always at the pastor's house. On my husband, I didn't think about the consequences. I was desperate, afraid of losing him. But the moment that I did, I knew that I had taken step into darkness. The pastor's wife said that it was necessary that I would keep him loyal, but deep down, I know that what I'm doing is that I am destroying him and I am destroying myself. Well, as for the Korobela, it worked. He became obsessed with me, but it is not about love. It is not real. I can even feel it. And every day I watch him as he is changing, as he is becoming something that I want him to become, a zombie. And then my sister-in-law, she was starting to notice things, and she was asking as to why her brother all of a sudden became so quiet, because I was given some charms. It works as if it's like a remote control. When I want him to be quiet throughout the day without talking, I can just do that using the charms. And her sister and the sister started complaining, since he was known as someone who was outgoing and very talkative, and she knew that something was not right. She confronted me one day and I panicked. I told the pastor's wife, and she said that there was only one way to deal with her. She had to be silenced. I did not think it would come to this, but she is gone now because of me. I did not kill her with my hands, but we silenced her using that snake. One day when she was at work, she was working at this other supermarket, not wanting to name that supermarket. That was when she saw a snake, and she said that she saw that snake when she was busy packing right there in the supermarket, and then she was bitten by that snake. The funny thing about it was that when they checked the CCTV, they did not see no snake. They just saw her as she was panicking, and she then passed away. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear sister. That was the translation of that message. Strange things indeed they do happen in this world.